Welcome to the Museum of Aquarium and Pet History. We are at Super Zoo 2024. And who do I have today but my oldest friend, Sandy Moore from Seagrass Fish Farms. Hi, Sandy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. The one thing I just want to tell all you guys, is in the Florida Tropical Fish Farmers Association Hall of Fame, Sandy was inducted back in 2017.
Yeah.
So that's quite an honor. Congratulations.
It is, and I wasn't dead yet.
That's a big plus.
It is.
You didn't grow up in Florida, did you? You grew up somewhere else?
I am originally from Iowa, from the northwest corner of Iowa.
Uh-huh.
My grandparents were soybean and corn farmers. And then my mom decided moving to Florida would be a great thing.
You're rolling your eyes.
Yeah, it was culture shock. Everybody that lived in my little town in Iowa looked like me. And Florida is very diverse, right? And lots of languages, lots of different people from different backgrounds. So it was really culture shock. So she came down and became an entry-level agriculture worker, entry-level fish farm worker.
Wow, your mom did.
Yeah.
Now, why fish? Why from soybeans to fish?
That's what the biggest crop was in Hillsborough County, Florida, in the early 70s. It was phenomenal. So I grew up around a ton of fish farmers because she worked at several different locations before she ended up working at Seagrass.
Wow.
So I think she started if I recall correctly, she started for Ross Sokoloff, and then went to work for Sidney Lyles, and then worked for Renee LaGuardia, which is a story. And and I think she worked for Doc White for a minute, and then went to work for Seagrass.
Which was Elwyn.
Yes. Elwyn, back when we had 19 employees.
Oh my God. Now, you as a little girl, there's a picture I've seen of you where you're catching a snake or you're holding a snake.
Oh, yeah.
So you were a big snake catcher and you sold them to pet shops, right?
I sold them to Elwyn. I sold them to Elwyn's Seagrass for $5 a foot.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was
How
a
old
lot
were you?
of candy money at 10.
10 years
10.
old. That's awesome.
And I still do it.
Do you really?
Yeah. If I run across a little corn snake, it's going to become somebody's pet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet any of the legends when you were working at the fish farm?
Joe Leone gave me the best advice, which is the money in the fish business is made in the tenths of pennies.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's absolutely volume.
Yeah,
it's about volume,
sure.
Profitable volume.
Yeah. So we were talking about the white cloud mountain fish now that's extinct in the wild. And I go, there's millions bred in fish farms around the world.
That's right.
So here you've got a fish that's extinct in the wild and the fish industry has saved it.
Absolutely. And there's so many different examples of that. And I'm actually working with a nonprofit out of the UK for another animal like that, the red-tailed sharks, right, which are extinct in the Chaiapaya. Right. And we've got the Thailand government the Ministry of Fisheries has agreed to this, that we will do a repopulation event there. So we'll make a fund. So we'll have the red-tailed sharks there, and for every one we sell, we'll repopulate one into the river.
That's amazing.
And it'll also bring attention to how that river needs to be cleaned up because those fish went extinct because of pollution.
Pollution, yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of that in Asia.
Right.
That's really cool. I love that. And I love red-tailed black sharks.
Me too.
And I haven't, they went through a phase where there wasn't very many of them. You couldn't find them in stores for a while.
Yep. They're not the easiest fish to breed. You have to inject and strip them.
Right.
And as farmers move what they're going to raise for the next year, and we always do this, right? It's something, we have too much of something, then nobody breeds it the next year. If we have not enough of something, everybody brings it the next year. It's like feast or famine. Jeez. Always.
I remember going to one fish farm in Florida, and I saw black ghosts that were this big.
Yes.
Like an inch long. I'm like, these aren't wild caught. No. And they were breeding them with chorionic nanotropin with hormones, and then basically, I was blown away that they actually could breed that fish.
Yeah, that's a really interesting fish too, because of the electrical organ. We deal with some universities that do studies on those. One of the most interesting thing about those fish is if you open up their mouth, it's brilliant white.
Really?
Yeah, you'd never know.
When I was a kid, they told me that the reason that they had a hard time getting black ghosts in the beginning because the native Indians felt that their ancestors inhabited the ghost in the rivers.
Oh.
And that they couldn't collect them because it was a sacred fish and all their ancestors lived within the black ghost population. That's where they went when they died.
Okay. I kind of like that.
Seriously, I got that story from a couple different people when I was
Wow.
younger. And they said that's why they were so rare. They didn't come in very often, you know? And of course, now
Wow.
that's changed. But
Yeah,
that
now
was
it's
a
changed.
pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
Have you ever traveled to South America?
I have.
You have?
I have. I have the best job in the world. So I went on an expedition, it's been 10 years ago now, for Project Piaba,
Okay.
which is the nonprofit entity that supports the sustainable fishery of the Rio Negro, which is one of the tributaries into the Amazon River. It's in the middle of the rainforest in the state of Amazonas in Brazil, and went there for 2 weeks, and it completely changed my view on wild collection versus farmed or tank raised fish. I realized how my own personal decisions to move away from sustainably collected fish actually harms the environment, because the fishermen there, if they are fishing for these high economic value fish and low number take, if they're not fishing for them, then they have to go to food fishing, which is high volume, low economic value, or they have to log in the rainforest, or mine, which releases arsenic into the river,
Right.
or move into the ghettos of Manaus.
Isn't that insane?
It is.
It really is. You know, when people tell me, you know, well, wild caught is terrible, I'm like, you don't understand. When you talk about reptiles, you've got rich and poor in these third world countries. You don't have middle class. And the rich don't care about animals.
Right.
The poor do, because it's sustainable for them. Not only do they eat the animals, but when they could like monitor and collect some of the offspring and sell them and make money.
Exactly.
To buy clothes and school things and all kinds of other stuff for themselves. It's very important for them.
Right. And it doesn't have a negative impact on the quantity of animals in the wild, right? Because these are animals, right, we're taking out of the river to keep them alive, versus if we just left them in the river, probably they would perish when it was the dry season.
Exactly.
Right.
When it goes down to like 1 foot and polluted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. God, that's amazing. Okay, here's a big question for you.
Okay.
Walmart.
Yes.
Walmart got rid of fish. Tell me why.
Walmart got out of fish because it requires labor, really. They got out of fish at a time where they were looking for ways to remove labor from the stores. As you can see, like we went through COVID, and everything has gone to self-checkout. It's because having somebody in that department dedicated to that it didn't make economic sense for them on its own.
Right.
And I think that's the trouble that retailers get into, is when you look at live animal as a standalone piece and expect it to be just as profitable as, say, dog food.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make economic sense. But when you take the live animals out of the department, it has a direct negative effect on dog food sales.
Yes.
And interesting, we found that it had a direct negative effect to cosmetic sales, which was adjacent to that department.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you think they'll ever go back to carrying fish again?
No, I don't.
You don't?
Not in that way. No.
Some other way, maybe?
Some other way, maybe.
Now, you guys were on the forefront of that because you sold Walmart fish.
Sold them a ton of fish.
A ton of fish, right.
Yeah. We bought Blue Springs Fish Hatchery, actually, to get into the Walmart business.
Right.
Blue Springs Fish Hatchery had a 3-digit Walmart vendor number.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Sam Walton came in and met with the Martins back when he was building store number 3.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and he loved pets.
Sam Walton did.
Sam Walton loved pets, and he wanted to have a pet store in a store. And so they had a full line pet store. They had everything. We supplied every store with a big bird, a mascot bird.
Really?
And they would be returned after a year or so because, they learned profanity from the customers.
We had a mynah bird that did that at our
Yeah.
store too. They would whisper
Yes.
4-letter words to him, and
Yes.
then the mynah bird would
Yeah.
repeat it.
Yep.
But he would whisper it when he repeated
Yep.
it. He'd never like say it out loud.
Right.
It was really funny. No, the reason I asked you that was because there's a certain animal rights organization, and I will not mention who they are, that took credit for the fish being taken out of Walmart.
Absolutely not.
And that's what I said. I said, that is not true.
No.
So when
No.
Sandy comes here, I'm going to ask her the truth.
Yeah.
Because you were on the forefront of that. You guys sold him fish.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
knew that wasn't the right answer.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how they'll take credit for things that has nothing to do with them?
Doesn't surprise me at all
No.
because it's good for fundraising.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. All right, you've been on the forefront, the front lines of fighting to keep the marine fish industry in Hawaii open.
Yeah.
How is that going?
That's a quagmire right now. We have been fighting this and we will continue to fight it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Even though Hawaii is, on the grand scheme of things, we have one major fish that comes from Hawaii, yellow tangs. And that's like 99% of what is shipped out of Hawaii.
Right.
The point of our continued fight there is if Hawaii goes down, which is the best managed fishery on the planet,
Right.
and has data going back 30 years that proves that it's a sustainable fishery. If we lose that, we know that one of those animal rights organizations has told us and has made it public that they'll immediately march that to the Philippines and Indonesia to
Right.
shut down those fisheries.
Sure.
So we continue to be tied up in lawsuits and talking with the legislators there and talking with the public, which actually the public supports the aquarium fishery. We've done a lot of work there to see, because that's been one of the arguments, that it goes against the culture of Hawaii, but in actuality, that's not true.
No, that's not true.
Right, right.
And the thing is, those fish too, they don't just lay 5 eggs. They lay hundreds of eggs at a time.
Hundreds
So you've
of
got
eggs.
hundreds of thousands of baby yellow tangs that are mostly
Exactly.
eaten by other fish in the
That's
juvenile
right.
stages.
That's right.
So I just think it's ridiculous. If
Yeah.
it's sustainable, just sustain it.
Absolutely, and we have offered, and it's been adopted into law, that we don't take fish larger than 4 inches because we don't want to take breeder fish off the
Right,
reef.
the breeding stock.
Right.
No, that makes
Right.
total sense.
So slot limits, especially in that fishery, have done wonders.
How do you feel about glowfish?
I love glowfish. I do, and the new red angelfish, I want some. I don't think
I'm
that they're
curious
for
'cause
everybody,
It's
right?
a love-hate relationship
It's
I
a
have.
love-hate relationship,
You know?
and we bred them and distributed them for a long time. And I understand how purists don't love them.
Right.
Certainly, it's not something you'd ever want released to the wild. But you should never release your pet, right?
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah, I
it's a
agree.
cruel thing to do.
Yeah.
I think they attracted a whole new generation of aquarists
That's good.
who maybe wouldn't have gotten an aquarium if they didn't see that bright, shiny fish,
Yeah.
and then learn to love aquatic animals.
Oh. Should I tell them what glowfish are? It's basically a genetically modified fish that they used in the
We used them in Singapore. So they
For
were developed by the
research.
University of Singapore for research for environmental contaminants.
Right.
Right.
And they inject them with a sea anemone and
Anemone and coral.
coral genes, and they actually glow. So it's pretty.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
wild.
they fluoresce.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, it's crazy fish. So you're still at Segrist,
Yes.
and how does it feel to be in charge of a legacy company like that? It's a company that's been around forever and is like the number one in the industry.
Feels like I'm the luckiest girl in the world,
That's
right?
so cool.
When your vocation and your avocation are the same, it's not like work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love what I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was reading some stuff last night, and I was thinking, I wonder how many aquarists got their first fish at Woolworths.
Yeah.
Because it was you.
Yeah.
You got your first albino Cory cat
Albino
at Woolworths.
Cory, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. And I remember back in those days when Woolworths had fish, Kmart had fish.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that is that albino Corydoras came from Tampa Livestock, right?
Wow.
And Tampa Livestock, I got that great picture that you sent me.
Uh-huh.
That's from Tampa Livestock, and that's only 5 minutes up the road from me.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, isn't it funny how things work out?
Are some of those legacy farms still around, like the farms themselves? like Albert Greenberg's Everglades. Is that still around, that farm?
Everglades is still around. It's not, of course, it's not called Everglades. It's now called Waterscapes.
Really?
But yes, it's still around.
It's still there.
Yeah.
God, that's amazing. Sokolov's farm still there?
Sokolov's is not there. It's now a housing
Tract?
There's hundreds of houses all over what used to be the middle of nowhere.
That's amazing. Okay, Aquatica. Tell me about Aquatica.
Aquatica is a great story. Aquatica is our production arm, but before they were production arm, they were one of our major suppliers. It was started by a guy whose background is in accounting, and he did the accounting for several of the farmers in the Plant City and Lakeland area, and he started this is in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was doing their taxes. He thought they were actually selling drugs because they were making so much money. So that's how he got into fish farming. And what he's done is he learned a lot of the technology about indoor intensive culture filtration and started farming indoors, and really was a pioneer in that. And so when we started selling Petco and PetSmart in the early 90s, we needed volumes,
right?
Massive volumes of fish. And he had the perfect solution for that. So we've been tight with him since the early 90s, and then we bought Aquatica, I guess 8 or 9 years ago.
What kind of fish is he breeding predominantly?
So predominantly, he was breeding glowfish, but he breeds egg layers. So it's African cichlids and tetras and barbs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought of buying one of the marine breeders that breeds
We
marine?
looked at it.
Because that's pretty amazing that they could breed marine fish now in captivity.
It's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah.
And look at corals. We've been talking about that with all the bleaching of corals because of global warming, we're going to replenish it.
That's right.
By breeding them in captivity with specialized lighting and foods.
Yep.
Actually, not even foods. They produce, it grows coral. The light grows the algae, and the coral eats the algae.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat.
And that's one of the great things that came out of aquariums from the hobby.
Right.
Is the hobbyists are ones that taught the public aquaria and the government how to grow coral.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
God, we keep finding solutions to these problems.
Yes, we do.
And it's the industry doesn't get enough credit for that. It really doesn't.
Well, we need to toot our own horn more.
Absolutely. So you'll stay in this industry for the rest of your life, right? Just like me.
I'm sure they're going to make fish food out of me when I'm done.
I told that to my wife. I said, I want to be buried on the yard.
Yes.
So you got to make a death quilt for me. You got to knit it. She goes, you're gross. Don't even say that. I said, no, I want to be buried in the yard under one of the trees.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sandy, I don't know what else to say. I think I've covered most of it. Is there anything else that we didn't cover?
No, I miss how things were in the 70s and 80s in the fish farming industry in Florida. It was much more like a family. We did a lot of things together, right? We had the Fish Farmers Association, and the ladies' auxiliaries were called the Angels.
How
right?
Cool.
And we'd get it together on the weekends and play softball and go swimming and have barbecues and lots of parties.
You did tell me that in the old days, when you started working for Elwyn, he would have all the girls dress in like short shorts and.
We did. We dressed in shorts. Well, it was hot in there.
Yeah, sure.
We thought, we believed that, you cure ick by keeping everything hot. So it was like there was no air conditioning. It was hot, and we'd be wearing bikini tops and the farmers. I don't know why they would come hit us first, but we were a very popular destination.
Oh God.
Yep.
Well, Aunt, it's been wonderful talking to you. It really
Thanks,
has.
you too.
All right, so I'm sure we'll talk again, and thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
All right, that's a wrap.